All right, with excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, Matt Plapp, the founder of mattplapp.com and the author of Matt Plapp, Restaurant Marketing That Works Before, During, and After the Pandemic. And Matt's somebody who's been in my network for a while now. I'm excited to be collaborating and spreading your work, man. I really enjoyed reading this book. It's an easy read. It's a short read, as you can see. There's no reason for you to get out there and pick up this book and to sharpen your marketing sword. So before we get into it, like always, I always have my guests share a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
The hardest part of writing your own story is knowing you're worth the ink.
Ooh, the hardest part about writing your own story is knowing you're worth the ink. Why does that resonate with you?
It resonates too often. For me, I have to remind myself of it. So I got it from the end of a Kid Quill song. And on a weekly basis, some doubt pops in my head that I can do the journey I'm about to take. And literally Wednesday morning, we're driving to take on 10 interview and record 10 episodes of our show, America's Best Restaurants. And I'm on the way to the 8 o'clock. I had a good morning, got up at 6, exercised, drank some coffee, read a little, and I'm on the way to the interview. And I just started doubting myself, the path, because you look at the hard work ahead and like, am I the right person for it? And to me, that's why that quote resonates, because that's the hardest part is believing in yourself and knowing that you can do it.
Yeah, that's what was going through my mind is nobody will believe in you if you don't believe in yourself, and you got to convince yourself before you can convince others. You have to sell yourself to yourself before anybody else will buy into you. You have to believe. So awesome way to get this thing started. And what was going through my mind reading this book is that I would love to learn about how to apply the lessons from this book. And we had you on the show, Restaurant Unstoppable podcast, where we recorded the America's Best Restaurants is the acronym you use for ABR. Attract, build, and retain your customers. But I couldn't help but be curious about the majority of, I think, my listeners are people who are in that visioning stage where they have all this time before opening their restaurant to learn as much as possible. And I've always told people, like, if I'm opening a restaurant tomorrow, I'm not starting the process when I get the keys in my hand. Where you can start right now is building your brand, developing a brand, building it, and building your email list, building what you call in this book, your radio station. So what do you mean by that, building a radio station?
So ironically, my first book that I never published was called Create Your Own Radio Station. And it's still sitting in my computer. And the publisher said, Matt, nobody's going to look up on Amazon how to create a radio station. And that's not the concept of the book. And he knew that, but the title said it. And so my vision, where that came from, was about 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago. I'm speaking at a little 50-person event. I would host little seminars for Constant Contact, the email company in Northern Kentucky. I was their person that did like a monthly seminar. And I was trying to explain to people something they could grab onto to understand the power of an audience that you can control, like your own email database, your LinkedIn account, your Facebook, your Instagram, anything. And I asked the guy, I said, okay, where's your business? He said, it's in Northern Kentucky where we're at. And I said, okay, so you're boom right here. I put it on the map. I drew on a whiteboard, a big map of the area. It looked terrible, but you got the vision. I said, okay, so you're right here. 700 WLW radio station. If you live in this area, reaches about 500,000 people supposedly on a monthly basis. But radio is measured in what they call AQH, average quarter hour. Every 15 minutes, the average number of people that are supposedly listening to that station. I say supposedly because most radio listenership is extrapolated from about 1,000 diaries to a market of 1 million people like in Cincinnati. So it's a real big guessing game. But I said, okay, so they're every 15 minutes, WLW's audience is about 10,000 people. And okay, cool. I said, so let's look at that. 10,000 people on the board. So you can reach 10,000 people is why you decide to write a check to that radio station. But now you got to think about this. Where your store is located in Northern Kentucky, how far do people come? It was a restaurant. It's about 3 or 4 miles. I said, okay, so we just got rid of 9,000 of those 10,000 people. So now we're down to 1,000. I said, of those 1,000 people, your commercial airing at the time they're actually listening is, let's say it's probably close to 10%. Now you're down to 100. And of those 100 people, how many didn't flip the station, check their phone, yell at their kid in the back seat, honk the horn at some guy running across the street and yell at him? How many actually paid attention? Let's just say it's half of those. So 50 people heard the radio commercial you just spent $200 on. And I said, the reason I bring this up, I said, who in here has a Facebook friend list of more than 50 people? Everybody raise their hand. Who has a business page more than 50 fans? Everybody raise their hands. LinkedIn. How many people have a YouTube channel with 50 subscribers? How many people have an email list of more than 50? And I said, there's your radio station. You reach more people with the closeness to your restaurant than that radio station that's the biggest and baddest in the city. So my goal for you is to think about every time you ask a customer for their email, for their phone number, every time you make a connection on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, every time you get a YouTube subscriber, every time somebody subscribes to your blog, you are creating your own radio station. And guess what? You control the message. There's no commercial breaks. It's you. And so that was the concept of it. That was my first book that literally is still sitting in a Word document that my publisher said, hey, when Matt Plapp is a name that people know and people look for Matt Plapp books on Amazon, then you can publish a book with a title that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's just building your list, right? It's your audience, and there's a million different places you can build your list. I think we'll probably get into this, but your list is on Facebook, your list is on Instagram, your list is anywhere where you have an audience. But where are the most important lists?
So it all depends on your type of your business. But I'll say this: the easiest, most impactful place you can reach somebody as far as marketing is a phone number, a text message, a phone call. Yeah, I was talking to a restaurant recently. The guy calls his text list. He has a text list. People opt in for text messaging, and he has managers on duty. When they have downtimes, they'll pull their list up and they'll call people, and they have a valid reason. Hey, wellness check. This is Mike from XYZ Restaurant, calling the people we know, like, and trust. We know you're a huge part of the restaurant. Just wanted to call and check in and say hello, and also thank you for your business in the past. You can send text messages. It's a huge opportunity to send text messages, whether they're one-off or whether they're automated. And then from there, I think it varies on your audience. Your audience might be TikTok. It might be Snapchat. It might be Instagram. It might be Facebook. It might be LinkedIn. So you've got to look at your avatar, who the people you're trying to reach are, and where they're most prevalent. So like my wife is easy to reach on Instagram and Facebook. My daughter is easy to reach on TikTok, then Instagram, then Facebook. My dad is easy to reach on Facebook and LinkedIn. So you got to look at where the people are at and decide what medium you want to own, and don't try to own all of them. Don't try to be.
Why is that important? Not to try to own all of them?
Because you picture a river. So is there a river? What's a river near you?
The Exeter River.
Okay. Imagine there's no bridges. Imagine Eric is tasked with building the bridge, and you build that bridge halfway across. You stop and go, you know what? I'm going to build one down here too. And for the next 20 years, you build 20 bridges that none of them go across. And so now people are still looking like, well, damn, when are we going to get over there? Well, to me, that's what I think a lot of businesses do. They're average at Facebook. They're average at LinkedIn. Like I'm terrible at LinkedIn. So I don't put a whole lot of effort into getting awesome at it because I don't think we've conquered Facebook and Instagram for my brand and business. So we focus the majority of our talent on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Yeah. And then eventually when we get staff and get, when we feel we've conquered those other mediums, then we'll say, you know what, let's take on LinkedIn. Let's take on TikTok. Let's take on Snapchat.
Yeah. This is a philosophy that you're reinforcing that I like to echo and preach a lot, is that focus on one thing and do it really well. No. Whether that's your menu or your channels of communication, focus on impact, not reach. And I think if you focus on impact, what happens over time is you develop reach. Yep. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. When you mentioned the menu thing, it cracks me up. How many restaurants do it the complete opposite? And then how many restaurants do it crazy focused? I mean, if I go down the street to Raising Cane's, I've ever been to one of those nights, a fast food place down the street from my office. And they've got, I think, fries, Coke, and chicken tenders.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have, anything else. And they have like one or two sauces. They do it well. Yeah. I think, is it, what's the West Coast brand, the burger chain? My mind's escaping me right now.
Oh, In-N-Out?
In-N-Out. I mean, In-N-Out does. They don't, like McDonald's has fish sandwiches, Happy Meal, chicken tenders, this. In-N-Out's, like, if I recall, last time I was there, it was like literally burgers, French fries, and shakes.
Yeah. And I think not only is it going to make your, we're talking about operations now. We're not talking about marketing necessarily, but it translates. Not only you put all that energy into doing one thing really well, you can then remove yourself from that system or that process because it's easier to train. But the same thing's true for your marketing efforts. If you can put all of your energy into doing one thing really well, and if you only have one thing to market, then that also, I think it also kind of helps you deliver or have a more direct, clean message throughout your marketing brand or your marketing too. I mean, I don't know your
It
thoughts
gives you
on that.
clarity more than anything. I get literally on a daily basis. We have hundreds of restaurants we work with. All we work with are restaurants, period. And a lot of my restaurant clients own other things. One guy owns gyms. One guy has a bunch of some kind of chiropractic stretch concept. He's got a bunch of things. They call me up, Matt, I need to get on a call with your team to do this, this, and this. I'm like, why? Well, I want to talk about this other business. I'm like, we work with restaurants. We work with your restaurant. We don't do stretch labs. We don't do chiropractic. We don't do car auto detailing, but you know how to, right? Well, of course I do. I mean, it's the same principles. It's like the same principles of frying French fries and onion rings. But if you are really good at French fries, but you haven't mastered it, why go to the next level? And so I think that resonates across, whether it's your marketing or your operations.
Yeah, I love it. So back to what I said in the beginning of today's episode, we got you on the show. We dove into some of the the takeaways, the key elements from your book, with America's Best Restaurants being the acronym, attract, build, retain, ABR.
Mm-hmm.
What if you were talking? What if I were to hire you, somebody who didn't have a restaurant, whose plan is to start with just a vision in developing a brand and then doing collaborations with other restaurants in pop-ups and events? What would your approach, or what would your advice for me be with that approach, using the lessons you've shared in this book? Maybe it makes sense for you to jump up to 30,000 feet and give us the framing of the book, and then to take that scenario and plug it in.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you just gave me an idea, by the way. I have a joke I always do. I always take the people when I meet people at events. I'll say, you know what, dude, cover the word restaurant. Marketing that works.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're auto repair, if you're a chiropractor. Now, granted, you're going to read an example in here about a dessert pizza that might not convey, you might not put that in context with an oil change. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. And you give me an idea. I'm going to talk to my publisher. We're going to take where it says restaurant everywhere in this book, and we're going to black it out. Black bar. And I'm going to sell the book with the lines through it that's just marketing that works. The first chapter is going to be, hey, we removed the word restaurant in here for you. Plug in what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept behind the book, originally the book was titled Restaurant Marketing That Works, Back to the Basics, ... 101. And the reason I wrote it that way, and this is back before the pandemic. I started writing this before the pandemic hit. And the reason I was doing that was I come across so many operators, so many businesses that aren't doing the basics. I just got done, finishing my basement this past winter and putting a movie theater in. Well, I couldn't have done that if we didn't have a house to live in. The wife would have been a little upset, like, oh, we got a theater, but I have no kitchen or bedroom. I have no bathroom.
Yeah.
We put a hot tub in the backyard. I didn't lay it on dirt. I had a company come in, build a concrete pad. I had an electric company come in, put the electric in. Then the hot tub came in. Then we put the water. They hooked it up. Now it's fabulous. So my thought with the book was we were running across so many businesses that their websites sucked, that their I ran across a restaurant recently, have a logo. And I'm like, what do you mean no logo? Like, we haven't gotten one yet. I'm like, how long have you been open? Like 5 years. What? It was just, they script. And so I wanted to really go back to the basics of what I think are the basics of marketing a business, specifically a restaurant. And during the pandemic, I'm talking to my publisher late last year, like October, November. And he said, Matt, what changed in the book? What did you change as you wrote it? I said, I didn't change anything. So you're saying you didn't pivot this book to focus on what worked during the pandemic? I said, David, the same things that we preached before work now.
Marketing's marketing, regardless of whether or not there's a pandemic happening.
Well, and it was the part that to me was even more impactful in the middle was the storytelling, the connection with your audience, fine tuning your message to let them know that, Patrick Harder owns this Dickey's barbecue. And he lives here locally, and he goes to that church down the street, and he's in charge of these employees. I mean, that's the only part to me that was more important, was I've been telling you beforehand, do live video, insert you into the conversation, create relationships, create conversations with your customers. Well, guess what? You got to do it more now, because people want to know who to support in these tough times more than they did before. They're being a little more intentional with their dollar. But I told David, I'm like, that's our publisher, David Brawler. I said, David, the conversation in this book is identical. The same exact thing I was preaching 3, 4, 5 years ago is the exact same as I preached during the pandemic. And it'll be exactly the same thing I said then. Attract attention with your marketing, leverage that attention to build a database, and use that database to create relationships. And I kind of call it the marriage cycle. I've been married 22 years now as of like 3 weeks ago. I got the attention of Christy somehow. I guess I was lucky in college. Maybe it's because I was a very handsome, devilish guy. I saw her in study hall.
Was?
I still
Come
am.
on, man. Give yourself some credit.
I saw her in study hall. I remember asking Marcia, one of the fellow softball players she was with, because I was in football study hall. She was in softball. We were in the same area. And I said, hey, can you get me Christy's number? And then eventually Chris and I talked, and I got her number. And we went on our first date. And here we are 26 years later, 22 years of marriage, couple kids. I attracted her attention. I built a database of her phone number, her dorm room number, became friends with her, dated her, and eventually got married. And I've been able to somehow retain her for 26 years through our relationship. It's no different than with customers, no matter what business you're in. So the book at a high level talks about how to attract attention. I have a handful of tactics in there of what you can do to get attention: Facebook, Instagram, your in-store marketing, your website, any data you might have from prior. You mentioned people that are starting a new business. They've probably got an email account they've had for 20 years.
Yeah.
Go in your sent mail, export the sent mail, clean it up. And then as you start your new venture, use that to send them an email. Hey, by the way, click here to opt out if you don't want this, but we know each other from a prior life. Here's something I've got coming up, or here's something I'm doing. So we talk about database reactivation. LinkedIn, you can export your LinkedIn connections to a spreadsheet and use that in marketing. Again, if you do any of these tactics that they're not accustomed to or didn't opt in to get a message about that product, start it off by saying, here's the way to get off this list. Be real clear and direct. People will appreciate it, and then they're more likely to read it anyways and stay with you. But then once you figure out those tactics of how you get attention, figure out how you can leverage that attention to build a database. Because in my opinion, call to actions are lacking in most marketing. Most marketing that's out there exists to sell a product. And I think it's insincere. I think it's, kind of insincere to think that just because I see your commercial on the TV, or I hear your radio commercial, or I see your Facebook ad, that I'm instantly going to come to your place and eat food.
Yeah.
Figure out a way to bridge the gap to where you're not worried about getting me to eat food. You're worried about me giving you my information.
Well, one of the things you just mentioned there is probably one of my biggest resistance with I admit first and foremost that I could be much better about promoting myself and leveraging social media for marketing. One of the things that I struggle with is that it always feels so insincere for me personally, and how do you get over that level of what's your dialogue with your clients that say that to you? Like, I just feels fake. It doesn't feel like this isn't who I am. This isn't how I would communicate. What is your advice for that person?
You've got to figure out how to make it your way then. I'm drinking water. It might look like I'm drinking beer out of a growler, but I'm drinking water out of a growler that this
started. You need to trick yourself to think that it's beer?
No, I don't even drink. That's what friends of mine that come and like, dude, are you drinking now? I'm like, no, this is water. But I have this as a prop also lately, because I remembered about, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was doing an interview at the book, drinking the water. And I'm like, I remembered where this came from. This client was trying to figure out how to market that they had growlers more often. People just didn't know that Hofbrauhaus had growlers now. I said, okay, let's give away growlers. Let's give away the logoed glass growler. It's what it is. And that's why I have it, because it was a promotional prop on my shelf from, I don't even know, 6-7 years ago probably. And I ran out of cups here in our office, and I was using it to fill up the water jug. But I did this. I said, you know what? We want to educate people we have growlers. So that's number one. Number two, we want to get people to walk in here, but here's the way to bridge that gap. Let's give them something of value. Hey, click here, give us your name, your phone number, your email. You'll be given a voucher to bring into the restaurant to get a free logoed growler, empty of beer, because it's illegal to give away beer in Pennsylvania and Kentucky and Ohio. We did this. And obviously, if people drive there, park their car, walk in the restaurant, They're not going to come in and get a growler that's worth a couple bucks and walk out without filling with beer. So now they get beer. So the restaurant got sales as a byproduct of getting somebody's information, but giving value. So when you think about that, it comes down to giving value. What value can you offer that is worth somebody trading their information for?
Yeah. I've always said you've got to give before you get. And that theory applies more than just marketing. It applies to, well, it's relationships.
Yeah.
And all your marketing is a way, it's just a channel. It's a communication. It's a channel of communication with your client, with your guest. And that is a relationship. And if you want to build a relationship, you got to feed it. You've got to give to that relationship if you want that relationship to give back to you. It's like, I think in the book, you use the example how, like, we all have that friend who only calls whenever they need something, right? It's like, oh, Johnny's calling. He probably needs me to give him a hand. He's probably moving again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get stuck into going to help him move. And the only time I ever hear from him is when he's moving, right? You don't want to be Johnny.
No.
You don't want to be the friend that's only reaching out when they need something. How can you ask yourself, how can I give to my audience? How can I give to my guests? How can I add value to their life? So what are some of the ways, am I getting ahead of you right now?
Let's do it. It's perfect.
So what are some of the ways that you give? Do you add value using these social media platforms? And I'm still haven't dropped the idea that I want to selfishly use this episode to be self-serving for myself, and this idea of using it, starting what you're talking about with pop-ups and stuff like that. But get into that question.
Yeah. So first, I want to take a selfie because you're the first person that I've interviewed in our new podcast studio. So
nice.
Give me the thumbs up.
Yeah.
This studio is almost done. It's going to have a lot of cool stuff to it, but it's about 75% done. I got a fancy mic and headphones, little switcher board. So
you're looking baller right now.
It's new for me.
You're making moves.
So ironically, the person in the book that I mentioned that always calls you when they need something, saw him 3 weeks ago at the coffee shop I go to. Haven't seen him in 15, 20 years. And that was actually, I didn't mention his name and I won't now, but this guy would always call me. And he was a friend growing up to a point where I don't know what happened. I think what happened was I got successful and he saw me as a caveat to fill his needs because I had money personally. I controlled businesses that had money and he was at a nonprofit. And it was literally every time my phone rang, I got to a point like, I'm done. I didn't answer it anymore. I didn't reply to his emails. It was all the time. And so I think what you've got to think about with marketing is just take this one exercise. Every ad you hear on the radio, every TV commercial you see, every online ad you see, every Facebook ad, even Facebook and Instagram posts, look how self-serving they are. They're all me, me, me. Every restaurant we deal with, I have to have this conversation. My team does, like, hey, step back, think about what value you can bring your customers that allows you to relate with them or them have a conversation about themselves. And a good example would be, we did something for Mother's Day back in April. It wasn't come to this restaurant on Mother's Day. It was, hey, we want to know a special memory that you and your mom shared and what Mother's Day means for you. Go to Facebook and comment on this post with a picture of you and your mom and tell us something special about her. And so it wasn't selling food. And at the end of the day, it got the exact outcome we wanted, was that they saw the brand, they interacted with the brand. And when they commented, their friends saw their comment on their news feed and they saw the brand, but it allowed them to have a two-way conversation. Now, the next step is don't ignore those comments. Go in there and go, your mom looks beautiful. I'm glad you had this memory. I've got something with my mom, blah, blah, blah. So number one, the first step of all this is you've got to have an avatar built. You've got to have it written down. Like if I'm Eric, I've got an avatar that says, this is the person that I want to listen to my podcast. And you're going to have their name, you're going to have their age, you're going to have their race, their religion, the type of car they drive, where they live, how many kids, are they married, are they single, everything. Like my coach, Billy Jean, I'm interviewing him on Monday out in San Diego, Billy Jean Shaw. He always says he profiles. He's like, yes, I'm like a bad cop. I profile everybody, because if you profile, understand your messaging more. So that's the number one thing. Build that avatar of who you're trying to talk to. And then when you're thinking about how you're going to have that conversation in your marketing, think about what value you can give them. Restaurants are, for me, it's a little tougher because it's a consistent purchase cycle, but Restaurants give people value of fun. There's restaurants me and my wife go to that we have a lot of laughs, that we share special times. We went to Walt Hitching Post for my wife's birthday 2 weeks ago. So there's special reasons you go to restaurants. Every business has that. People listen to your podcast as their way to prepare themselves from driving from their house to work. There's different times people consume content. So you got to think about, why is somebody using my product, and then take it to that level. And then you can start having two-way conversations and giving value to make those conversations better. And we could go on and on about how to do this, but I think about a restaurant, and you come up with ideas that allow you to insert yourself into their conversations. And whether it's comical, whether it's sports, the NFL started, I guess, last night. Was it the first game? The Patriots?
It was Tom Brady in the Buccaneers.
Buccaneers, yeah.
Yeah, but I can see why I'd get confused. The Buccaneers are lucky we lent them our quarterback.
Yeah, I fell asleep apparently like the third series. My wife and son and I were watching it in our theater. It was the first time we watched a football game down there, and we're hanging out. And I was beat because we've shot 48 episodes of our show the last 3 days. And I apparently closed my eyes. They said they started laughing really hard at a funny commercial that aired. They looked over at me to see if I was laughing. They're like, "Man, you were snoring. We were loud, and it was 9 o'clock."
Was it the cat commercial?
I don't know. I don't remember what it was. I woke up at 1 a.m. I'm looking around trying to remember where the heck I was at, because I wasn't in bed, and went to bed. But, last night was the first football game. And, there's a lot of Buccaneer fans out there that were going to watch that game, that we're going to cheer on their Super Bowl, quarterback, and hope they can get it again. So when you're making social content yesterday, sending out emails, send out text, the inclination is for every pizza place in Tampa Bay to send out an email about buying pizza to watch the game tonight. Well, you kind of figure out a way to hold yourself back from that, and maybe send them something of value about the Buccaneers, some trivia, something they can use to drop knowledge on their friends. Hey, did you know the last quarterback to win back-to-back Super Bowls was Tom Brady, our quarterback, 15 years ago up north with the Patriots? And then all of a sudden you get, stuff that would give back, that's not necessarily asking for business.
See, this is, and sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I'm just listening to what you're saying and reflecting back on some of the biggest lessons I've learned on the show. And this is where it kind of gets interesting, because you hear a lot of times, you hear restaurateurs say, you got to do it exactly what you said, which is start with the end in mind, who's your target market, and reverse engineer. But then you have other people that say your business should be an extension of who you are and what your brand is. But then I recently had a conversation with a guest, Andy Fosheimer, who said, you got to find the balance. And I lean towards that answer. If you got to find the balance, because I think it's easier to show up to a business that is an extension of you, because it's say you open a restaurant that's like the Rainforest Cafe. I mean, unless you're a huge fan of the rainforest and that's your passion, or any branded themed restaurant, how hard is it going to be for you to show up and put that face on every day to go on stage, right? Yeah. It's going to be really hard to maintain that level of showmanship, right? To be something that you're not. So if you can show up to something that's an extension of yourself, it's more authentic, it's more real, it hits harder, in my opinion. But the other thing that I think is important to kind of finally get to my point is that when your restaurant is an extension of who you are, you become your target market, and you understand your target market that much better. Yep. But it's not an easy thing to do, because you and your brand, an extension of you, might not work in every market. So that's the one caveat is there's truth to that, but be careful if you're an outlier, in not a big city where there's more people like you, yep, then that doesn't work so much. What's going through your mind as I say this?
Yeah. So I call it the 60-20-20 rule, that 60% of what you put out there should be more relevant in conversations for your customers than you. 20% should be kind of that middle ground. I call it like a testimonial, and sort of you share a positive review about how Matt loves coming to your restaurant on anniversaries, blah, blah, blah. And then 20% should be direct selling. But you've got to have a mixture there of what content you're putting out. I got a funny story about Rainforest Cafe, by the way. We're at Rainforest Cafe, and I got to tell this because it was funny. We're at the one at Disney Springs. Well, it's called something else now, but it's Disney Springs down at Disney. And this guy walks up, it's packed. And we're at the bar, me and my wife, 2 kids eating. And this guy walks up, and we're getting ready to pay the bill. And he's like, "Hey, are you guys done?" I'm like, yeah, we're done. And he had looked pretty GQ-ish, had the cool hat on, had the swag rocking, and figured he just wanted our seats. And he's like, yeah, cool. So he sits down and he looks at my son's plate and he goes, hey, are you done with this? And I'm like, oh, yeah, my bad. Yeah, I went to push it away. He's like, no, I got this. And he just starts crushing Cole's Dino Nuggets. And I was like, okay. And he had dinner on our leftovers, and I don't know what happened after that, but I'd never seen that before.
Rough times call for
it was
desperate
funny because
measures.
the guy looked like he looked pretty good. And I'm like, okay, maybe he just is his thing. He just goes to Rainforest Cafe every night, finds a bar stool, and finishes food.
He saves all that money in food. He can, get swagged out.
You're right. But I hope that answers your question, because I think you've got to have a mix. And I think it's one way too often. I think it's, look at email. Like, when was the last if you were to go in your inbox, you're in your Google Gmail account and search for a restaurant that you're on their email list. I can promise you the last 52 weeks, you've gotten 52 emails that have given you an excuse to come eat there. And not even an excuse, they've given you a reason to come eat there, as far as a special, a discount, a menu item. They've never had it. There's not a conversation. It's just a direct message to you. And I think marketing needs to be a conversation. Like that commercial, whatever my wife and them were laughing about last night. Apparently it sparked a conversation because she was still laughing about it this morning.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to pull out, because you started talking about the different things you can do to give, right? And not to always be selling, but to be engaging. And you list 4 ways. I think you said we identified 4 types of campaigns that restaurants should be running. And you list the contest to gain engagement, the occasional perks and offers, and content that educates and excites, and event marketing.
Yep.
I don't know if that's getting too far ahead, but I think that those are perfect examples of how you can give: educating, giving something away, engaging the contest, making it fun, just entertaining, right? And then what do you mean by event marketing? How's that giving?
Tying back into, like I mentioned, Mother's Day. Every month, look at an opportunity to get a conversation going. April, you've got Mother's Day, early May. May, you've got Father's Day, the middle of, end of June. June, you've got July 4th coming up, America. July, you've got back to school coming up in August. August, you've got NFL starting and college football starting in September. September, you got Halloween coming in November. So you got all these different things happening. Figure out a way to engage your audience. And I call it, like, not event marketing. I had somebody recently ask about that part. That I mean, like, having events in a restaurant. No, I meant events that your customers are going to partake in. I love the Mother's Day and Father's Day one, because we all have a special memory of our mother or father, whether they're with us or not. And so that's a way that you can put yourself, marketing's impressions. All you want to do is have impressions. The more impressions, the more time that Matt Plapp is in front of restaurant owners on an annual basis, that'll just multiply the more times we have a positive experience and gain customers. The more time Eric's podcast is in front of restaurant operators, or one of, potential operators, future operators, the more often they'll listen to you, the more people you'll gain. It's like a restaurant guy told me recently, like, Matt, if I have 10 impressions a year with a customer that knows, likes, and trusts me, I might get, let's say, 1 visit. If I have 100 impressions, I might get 10 visits. I have 1,000. So you got to think about, how are you going to get impressions? Well, the problem with marketing, why people fail to get consistent repeat impressions, is people tune you out because your messaging is me, 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 me. If I came home every night to my wife and said, honey, guess what? I did great today. I did this podcast with Eric, crushed it. Had a great bowl. I ate good at lunch. I had an acai bowl from Better Blend. Got up in the morning and ran. Did a great. My sprint was good. If it was me, she'd ignore me and she'd listen to me less often. And then the less she listens to me, that leads to us not talking. That leads to divorce. Your customers are divorcing your brand's communication because it's me, me, me. But think about, if you were to say 52 weeks a year, I'm going to communicate via email. 52 weeks, I'm going to communicate via text. 365, I'm going to communicate via Instagram. Figure out a way to have more of those conversations, not about you, but about them. Hey, go to Facebook. Let us know a great memory of you and your mom. They go to Facebook. We had one client that had like 500 people comment on a Facebook post, one location restaurant, with a memory about them and their mom. The restaurant did nothing to try and capitalize as far as buy something. It was love it, appreciate it. It was good stuff. But you think about that, if you mix things like that in every month, people don't know what the next email is. I know the next email that's going to come from Barleycorn's, a wing joint down this place I love. Every week, every week, when I send an email, it's selling me something. That's why I don't open them that often. If every once in a while it was something different, hey, go to Instagram. Let us know the number one draft pick that you got in your fantasy football draft. Now, talking to their avatar, talking to dudes, they're talking to people like football. So I think when I talk about event marketing, I mean from that standpoint, an event in your customer's life that they are interacting with. And you can look at every month. I mean, March every year, every middle-aged guy in suburbia is getting ready for their golf league. August every year, a lot of people are getting ready for fantasy football. I mean, last week was, if you're a Jewish restaurant, I know last week was the Jewish New Year. You've got an audience that has significant impacts of their month every month. Figure out a way to start a conversation that is about that impact on them versus on you. You'll benefit because now you've got more engagements, more impressions, more eyeballs. And that's what you want. Because if I look at, Walt's Hitching Post, an example I use a lot, they're in the book, one of my favorite restaurants. The more often I see their name, the more often I will eat there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's where the event part comes
in.
So
we're getting into right now, again, the framing of the book is attract, build, retain. We're talking about the retain stuff. Retain, right now. We kind of got ahead. We skipped over the build. Yeah. So if we're going to 30,000 feet, the first thing is to attract. And you say in the book, the best way to attract, and you get a lot of kickback on this, is to bribe your audience, your guests. What do you mean by bribe?
What's your favorite hobby, Eric? You ride bikes, right?
Yes. How do you know?
What is something that consistently needs, what's a product that you use consistently on a bike?
Chain lube.
Chain lube. So you like bikes. I'm a new bike shop down the street. I've not had a chance to prove to Eric that I'm an awesome bike shop. I pop up in your news feed. I see you at an event. I say, Eric, here's a voucher here's an opportunity to get a free thing of chain lube. Scan this QR code. We're going to ask for your name, your phone number, and your email, and we're going to text and email you the free voucher. You bring it in. You can unsubscribe at any time. You bring it in, you'll get a free thing of chain lube. There's no strings attached. There's no, got you. Like you come in and we kidnap you and we sell you 10 bikes. Give something of massive value that has zero strings, but you have to lay out the ground rules. I hear this from restaurants all the time. Oh, I can't give away food. I'm like, well, you're not giving away food. You're bartering for information.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody like you that likes bikes, you have somebody like me, that enjoys cars. There's always something that people enjoy. Well, a restaurant's the easiest. We all enjoy food. We all eat all the time. So figure out a way to make somebody stop from their norm and stop by you. I mean, you've got a bike place you go. If a bike place opened up between you and your bike shop you go to, you might think they might have the coolest logo, the greatest Facebook commercial. They might have the greatest looking sign. You trust that guy down there. And so that's where you're going to go. Well, you've got to figure out a way to stop that, not that trust, but kind of interrupt the trust and go, well, you know what? I need to stop by and say hi to this guy.
Yeah. So what's the difference between attracting and building?
Attracting it. Let me hold that. I got to grab my charger real quick. My laptop's not plugged in. I just realized. 1 second.
Yeah, take your time. It's not like we're live or anything. well, Matt is getting his phone charger. I'm gonna eat some cold oatmeal and sit here awkwardly.
Okay, I'm back. I'm in the new studio, and I didn't bring my charger with me.
Figure if you walked away, which is something you're not supposed to do in a live recording, I could do something else you're not allowed to do in a live recording.
We're being unconventional today. What are you eating, by the way?
I have an ulcer, so I'm eating oatmeal.
Oatmeal.
Yeah, I think being an entrepreneur comes with its pros and cons.
It does. We stress our bodies a lot. We put our body, especially the food business. I mean, we shot on every night at the end of the night. I survey myself on a little landing page I created to kind of judge my days and understand where I had good and bad days. And one question I asked was my health that day. And when you shoot 10 episodes at 10 restaurants, of which 9 of 10 showcase 3 to 4 items that are not very good for you, and you sample those 3 items 10 times in a row, at the end of the day, you're like, oh man, what did I do to myself today?
Yeah, right. So I think I asked you the difference between attract and build. And you told me to hold it right there.
Yeah. So attract and build. Attracting is getting them to stop and look. So let's just go at a basic level. We're going to have pizza this weekend at my house. It's just going to have, we have pizza probably every weekend. So you want to be the pizza place that attracts my attention this weekend so that I buy pizza from you. But let's say you're a pizza place I've never eaten at before. I'll use this example. I've eaten this place, but let's just say you're Poseidon's Pizza, which is a place in Union, Kentucky, near my house. I'm on Facebook. My wife's on Facebook. We're on Instagram, and we see something. And it's like Poseidon's Pizza. We want to feed you this weekend. Click below to get a free pizza this weekend, a free dessert pizza, a free steak hoagie. If I'm not a customer of yours, if I'm not a person that's going to order from you, even if I am a person, do something to get my attention that forces you to not pass up the opportunity to give me your information. So if it's the attention that leads to the build is that you want a free cookie pizza. Papa John's got me on that years back. I use it all the time as an example. They had a marketing campaign for a free cookie pizza. Dumb thing in my mind. I'm like, what's a cookie pizza? I'm thinking like pizza with cookie. I didn't think it was like a giant cookie. I'm thinking like what sauce is on it. No. And so I got it. And I got this free cookie. Well, now I got it free the first time. Now every time we order Papa John's, we get like 2 cookie pizzas because they're so freaking good. Yeah. I think it's better than the dang pizza. And so maybe one day I'll just order 5 cookie pizzas and eat those. But their marketing got me to stop. And the action is, okay, in order to get this cookie pizza, join this program. It's simple. And you got to lay the ground rules out on what's going to happen. You can't go, want a free cookie pizza, and I click there and it's like asking all this information. You have to tell them, hey, in order to get this, you have to give us something.
Yeah. So when you say programs, give me examples of different types of programs we can have to trade, to like say, okay, like what's a good, like, is it a loyalty program? Is it a VIP program? Yeah. Is it just join our email list so you can stay in the loop? Like what kind of programs are there?
I mean, there's a lot out there. I mean, I'm selfish in that I think ours is the best because we have a great one that restaurants use.
You guys use a VIP program, right?
Yeah, we call it a VIP, and every client names it their own, but ours is a system. It's internally called Database Dynamite, and we're going to eventually market that in the masses as that brand. But we call it Database Dynamite because it blows up your database. Big explosion.
But that's what you guys call it. That's not what the consumer calls it. They don't know that they're being.
Yeah, the restaurants will call it. The restaurants will call it a VIP program.
What do you get? So is it just like what's okay? So I give you my phone number, my name, my email, and I join your VIP program.
Yep.
What makes it VIP?
That's where it's up to you to craft it. That's where you've got to set that narrative early on that, hey, when you click on this link to get this free pizza, you're going to be asked 5 questions to enroll in our VIP program, and here's what that means. You have to set that narrative. So what we tell people is you're going to be the first to get perks and special bonuses throughout your lifespan of being a customer.
So like if you get new swag in, they get the first swing at
new swag,
new recipes, test new recipes or something like that.
New menu items, things like that.
I see this being a good place to develop. I don't know, like if you're doing like a membership model where like you get like a calzone of the month, if you're doing like a calzone concept like my dream, right? Or a pizza concept, like maybe it's you're creating a test market. Like every time we develop a new pizza, we deliver it to you free of charge because you're in our VIP program. We want your feedback, right? Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, we've had clients. I mean, it can be perks. One thing I'm adamant to though is, for the most part, most restaurants you don't want to develop. I like the word VIP because you do not want to develop a discount program. You do not want to discount your food all the time. You do not want to train people that the only time they eat it, Walt's Hitching Post, is when they have a coupon. Because if people enjoy your food, they don't need a coupon. But if they get a perk every once in a while for being a valued customer, that's cool. And so that perk sometimes might be a free dessert. It might be a free appetizer. It might be a buy one, get one entree, things like that to gain data. After that, you have to be careful how you use the data, because you do not want to build an audience of people that only eat at your restaurant when there's a discount. But a couple of the ideas, like something I've seen that's worked really well, Menu Mondays. Use your VIP list. You're going to get invited to a monthly event that we do called Menu Mondays, where we test out new food. We test out and sample new
secret
appetizers.
menu.
Yeah, secret menu.
And only you being in this group can see this menu and know about this menu.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of ways to frame it. The one thing there's certain restaurants have loyalty programs. Certain restaurants will have apps. Like, restaurants are in love with their app. Guess what? Consumers aren't. Consumers rarely.
Where do you fall on that spectrum of apps being something? I think a robust website and a good like loyalty program or VIP program is more than enough. I think apps are kind of
I've not seen, and I'll say this my knowledge base, or my opinion here, is based off of, let's say, 500 plus experiences of talking to CEOs, marketing directors, all these people about their apps. Apps are viewed from the restaurant world how websites were viewed 7 to 10 years ago. That if you told them how ugly their website actually was, and you just called my baby ugly. Well, that's what apps are now. I was talking to a marketing director recently, and she's all excited that 11% of their monthly sales are through people using the app. And guess where 99% of their advertising budget goes? To the app. And I'm like, so 11% is getting 99% of your budget. I'm not a math guy, but 89% is getting the Heisman. And she looked and she's like, damn, that's deep. Because I'm pretty brutally honest. And she said, I hadn't looked at, our whole focus was, how do we get this app huge? We're ignoring it. I said, people aren't downloading the app that are brand new or don't love you. And so 70, 80% of the people that are going to account for your weekly revenue, 90 in her case almost, aren't using the app. And so, there's a love affair for apps out there. And I think,
is it, are they just trying to like capitalize on human habit and behavior? And they figure if they can create habit around the app, then they can own the purchase.
They think so. The problem is there's too many freaking restaurants. There's too many restaurants. There's too many choices, too many opportunities. People have too little of data on their phone, their storage space. People don't want to go through the process of clicking a button, go in the app store, downloading the app. Oh crap, what's my Apple ID? I mean, how many times you try to remember what your password is? It takes you 20 minutes to do something because you don't know your freaking password. So there's all these little things that you got to overcome. Whereas if you develop and curate a product, like we have the VIP program, it takes literally 20 seconds. It's simple. It's already in an app you already have on your phone for the most part, texting and email, that it's simple to do. And that's where we deliver this really unique offer that you can come use. And then at that point, you go that route. Loyalty programs can be good. Certain places, I think loyalty programs people use incorrectly. And you build up points for doing something you were going to do already. I'm not a big fan of, for example, my son, he's supposed to go to school every day. Well, guess what? You're not going to get points on my board for going to school. You're supposed to go there every day. Well, I go to, there's a smoothie shop down the street. I go to a smoothie shop called Better Blend 3 to 5 times a week. They shouldn't be giving me perks for coming 3 to 5 times a week. I'm already coming. So they would just be cannibalizing their profit by giving me perks. Now, if they occasionally threw a bone my way, it's pretty cool. But if every time I come, I'm earning dollars, that's why people like loyalty programs, the old Subway punch card. Every time you get a sub, I like that because I'm not getting a discount every time, but I'm gaining to something like some monumental task. I get a free hoagie, in 2 months. Mm-hmm. So every brand's got its own little intricacies. And I was telling a CEO this morning who's got a decent sized company, about 70 locations, and we were talking, and I said, what I view, like my neighbor's got a pickup truck and he's got a bed for hauling stuff, mulch, rock. He's got a trailer hitch for pulling boats. He's got 4-wheel drive for going through the woods and knocking things over. He's got a hook on the front for being pulled by stuff, whatever. He doesn't use all of those. And so like marketing programs a lot of times have the same thing. Like what we do for restaurants, most of our clients don't use everything. They use bits and pieces to fill in the gaps of what they're already doing. And that's why I tell a lot of businesses, you've got to look at your audience 3 ways: new, frequent, lost customers. What are you doing to work with frequent customers? What are you doing to attract new customers and retain them, turn them into frequent? And what are you doing to get lost customers back? Maybe your app is gold mine for your frequent customers. Maybe your loyalty customers are gold mine for your frequent. But what are you doing for the people that aren't going to join a loyalty program, aren't going to get an app, or maybe forgot about you? The pandemic caused a lot of traffic disruptions. A lot of people that used to go to Taco Tuesday at this place by their office in downtown Cincinnati haven't been to Taco Tuesday in 3 months because they don't work in downtown anymore. They work from home, but they love your Taco Tuesday. What are you doing to keep their attention and remind them of all the good memories like of our Taco Tuesday? And I think that's where the value of a database comes in, and building those relationships is if you do a good job of getting attention and you do a good job of getting people, convincing them of a valid reason to give you their information, trading it, bartering. I said bribe recently. This lady got all offended. A marketing director for a big brand. We don't bribe our customers. That's illegal. I'm like, okay, I didn't mean physically bribe. I'm like, we're not talking about politicians. We're talking about pizza in exchange for data.
Yeah.
But it was literally, she was kind of upset. It was kind of funny to me. I was like, okay, sorry. And I hope she hears this because it was comical. But it went to the next level was, okay, you get data. Now, how do you date your customers? A lot of people, businesses, the goal is now you get data. How do I get married and have a baby tomorrow? Christy and I dated for 4 years, got married for 2 years, then had kids. Didn't happen on night one. Now, I know some people that happens night one, and that might end up correct sometimes, but most of the time it ends up wrong. Well, it's the same with your clients, that if you're a business of any sort, a restaurant, court your customers, date them, get engaged, get married. And then when they have kids, that's them downloading your app. But guess what? You don't have kids with every customer right away.
Mm-hmm. So when collecting that data, you bribe, like you say, and you get the email, name, phone number. When do you start getting more data? When is it? So you don't want to over ask on the first date.
Oh, yeah.
On the first date, all you want to get is a second date.
Yep.
You don't ask to get to third base on the first date, but eventually you want to get to third base. So when do you ask? When is it appropriate to ask for that extra stuff? In this case, the extra stuff I'm talking about is more data, more specific data beyond email and phone number, like sex, not literally sex. Like if they're a man or a woman, that's kind of a bad leeway. They're a man or a woman, or what's their gender, right?
Yeah.
Like what are their interests? How do you start getting that extra stuff, the good stuff to start segmenting?
I think if you don't over ask, every time somebody engages with your marketing, it's an opportunity to ask them 1 to 3 questions, especially if you have a tool that does it really intuitively and easy. But like I had a survey the other day from Delta, and it was Delta. I think it was Delta. I don't want to call them that. It was an airline. Maybe it wasn't Delta because I fly a lot, but it was an airline. No lie, it was like 27 questions. Geez, I want to help you and give you feedback, but man, not this one. I got an email this morning from a company I just did business with, and it was a rating and a question about why am I rating, and I was done, and I gave it to them. And so what I look at is, how can we trickle in information? If you're let's say you're Hofbrauhaus and you've got German food, you've got music, you've got open seating, you got a beer garden, you've got beer, you've got growlers, you got crowlers, you got different types of beer. Maybe after they become a customer and they walked in, they redeemed an offer, a VIP offer of some sorts, and you have a way of knowing that. You send them a message, hey, we appreciate your business, Matt. By the way, ask a review. How was your visit today? Was it awesome or did it suck? And if they say it was awesome, hey, we'd appreciate a Google review. They say it sucked, man, we messed up. Can we call you and fix it? That's where that's like the first step. The second step would be, they come in again. Hey, see you visited, love it, we appreciate it. Hey, when you come here, is it for work or pleasure? Or are you coming with family or friends? We always ask like 3 questions on the second one. It's when you come, are you with family or friends? Because we're trying to identify if it's a social visit with friends or if it's mom, dad, and kids. And if they say family, do you have kids under 18? Yes. And then is the restaurant near your work or home? Because we're trying to get proximity. Because then if it's near their home, we might market dinner more often. Let's say outside of the pandemic and COVID, we might market dinner because people are working from home now. But traditionally, we'd market items that aren't near their house. And then the other end, if they say it's near my work, We might market lunch more often. But I think you've got to be careful not to overstep your bounds and ask everything. Like I didn't sit there with my wife on our first date. We went to Mr. Gaddy's. By the way, she hit me with a basketball in the face afterwards, and a different story. But I did make a date in front of her. That was kind of rude, but I was trying to test the boundaries. So apparently my tactic, reverse psychology, worked. But she, or I was just too stupid. I don't know. But I didn't sit there at Mr. Gaddy's and say, what sports do you like? Why do you like those sports? What grade you get in 5th grade? How was 4th grade? What are your parents' names? Where are they from? Where are they married? I didn't go that route. You trickle in the information, and over the course of 10, 15, 20 times, you might accumulate data. But then also you got to look at it from your restaurant standpoint and say, am I going to use the data? If I'm not going to use the data, don't ask the question. I always heard a friend of mine always said, if you're in a business meeting, don't ask the question that you don't ask the question that you don't care what the answer is, and don't ask the answer to the question that you don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Can you use that same tactic of just bribing for more data? Like, hey,
yeah.
We got you on the list. We know who you are, your contact information, but we want to know more about you. And if you give us more information, if you fill out these 3 fields, then we'll give you another free appetizer.
Yeah. And if there's value in that data for you, knock it out. Say, hey, every time you answer 3, every time you could come into you got things that are low costs. Like I was at a restaurant the other day and they have something that costs 28 cents that sells for $4.99. And he's like, Matt, I'll give away this item whenever and whatever.
Popcorn?
Was it popcorn? It was cinnamon bites. So when they make their pizza, how they trim their pizza, they have the extra dough.
Oh.
And so they throw in a little thing, they pop in these little squares, they toss it in cinnamon sugar, throw it in the thing. It's like 30-something cents are right around there.
So I had a follow-up question. I lost it. So you can, so basically you get the first bit of information, which is the big one, your name and your contact information. Then you can repeat. If you had 3 fields that you could fill out, because I've heard before, like you don't want to ask for more than 3 things on each attempt, right? What are the most important 3 fields beyond text, phone number, and name?
Number 1, visit frequency.
I said text. I'm an email, phone number, and what was it?
Visit frequency.
So how often do you come in?
Are you frame the question to say, hey, based on your how do we frame it? Something to the effect of, please answer the question below that with the answer that fits you best, something like that. And it's like, I've never been to the restaurant. I come all the time. I haven't been in a couple months.
What's number 2?
Number 2 would be gender.
What's number
male
3?
Or female. What's the what?
What's the 3rd field?
When they visit. Is it
daytime?
Yeah. Is it day part? Are you a lunch or dinner? And then at that point, you can kind of take it to different steps. Now, for me, if I was a restaurant that had beer, like we were at a restaurant yesterday, Taste of Belgium, which has a lot of beer. I was at one the other day, 2 weeks ago. They had like 100 beers on tap or something crazy. Find out. Obviously, people are there because you got a lot of beer, probably. What kind of beer do you drink? Are you an IPA? Are you a stout? Are you lager? Because then you can start marketing when new stouts come out. If I'm an IPA person, you can, check all the beers that apply. If I don't check IPA, do not send me an email or text about IPA. But if I text IPA or choose it, send me one. When we did that Mother's Day promotion with a lot of our restaurants back in May, or I guess it was April, it went out and for May's marketing, it went to females because we knew that females are going to reply to that 10 times more than men.
Love it. So I started this episode or this live recording saying I want to get a little selfish and get some advice for myself. Mm-hmm. So I know we're over our agreed time. Do you have another 5 minutes?
Yeah.
So my vision for what I want to do, my passion, my little love affair has always been with calzones. I love calzones, and that's man. I want to be a specialty calzone shop. I want to do just calzones.
Didn't know that.
So that's my vision. It's kind of like a pizza shop that does like pizza by the slice, but just pizza. Similar, but I want to do just calzones. My vision is to start where I can, which is just bringing people in on me playing with calzones and trying to figure out my dough recipe and having fun. And then I'm probably going to go to friends and family and say, hey, I made dough and I can't eat 5 pizzas by myself. I can, but I really shouldn't.
Yep.
Can I come over and cook pizza for you or calzones for you?
Calzones,
right?
Yeah.
And they say, yeah. And then my plan is just to have fun and to have calzone parties with friends and family. And then from there, do something more formal like collaborations with restaurants where I feature their food in my calzones for fun, just to kind of, network and get my brand out there. And then from there, I might do more formal pop-ups where the calzones I collaborated with, the ones that got good traction, like people are like, oh my God, what do I got to do to get a General Tso's calzone?
Yep.
Like, when's that happening again? Create an event around that. And from there, do something more like permanent, like a ghost kitchen or a commissary where I do like a membership only or delivery only. And from there, kind of scale into a QSR brick and mortar.
Yep.
Now back to what we're talking about, this whole idea. I think the lessons from this book can start from day one when I say, this is what I'm going to do, and start building. And I think if you took this book and you applied this book, the lessons from this book, marketing around all these events that you're doing in this, you can start a brand today with a logo and a website and a landing page. You talk a lot about landing pages where you literally are just collecting information, and you sign up for a service like Ovation, right? Where you say, okay, like, hey, like, thanks for having me here to have this calzone party for you. Like, can you scan this QR code and like fill out this survey for some feedback? And then you're capturing this data, right? Like, I don't know. I don't want to get too much into my plan. I want to know what you would tell me to do to start marketing myself using the lessons from this book.
I got it. So if I was you, I would come up with a clear timeline and say, hey, it's September 10th, 2021. By October 1st, 2022, I will have Eric's Calzone Factory at XYZ Strip Center, at a strip center near you, something. I would come up with a timeline of whatever that is, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. I would come up with something. So you can
Pockets of love, by the way.
Huh?
Pockets of love.
Pocket the love?
Pockets of love.
Pockets of love. That's what it's going to be called?
Eric's Pockets of Love.
Okay. Eric's
Maybe.
Pockets
I don't know. I'm
okay.
playing with it.
So I would come up with a timeline and say, this is the vision. And then I would literally, this might sound crazy, I would do a live 3 to 5 minute video every day. And then I would direct them to a landing page that says, hey, this is Eric. This is your boy, Eric. If you're watching this, we're friends at some point in life, whether we've connected recently or we haven't. I want you to be along for the journey. I'm going to be going live every day at 11 a.m. Hopefully, maybe it'll be a little later, but every day around 11, talking about pockets of love and my vision. And the goal, if you go to ericspocketsoflove.com, which don't go there. I don't know what's there. It could be dangerous. But if you go to Eric's Pockets of Love, you'll see my timeline. You'll see my vision. You'll see what I'm trying to accomplish. And what that's going to start off with is building an audience of people who share my love for calzones that are in my immediate area that'll be able to come along the journey. Because what I envision with that journey is starting to do some samplings and tastings and trying to have some friends and families and come to your house and make Eric's calzones and do this. I want to kind of come up and paint that picture of what it looks like going from now until then and taking it to the next level. I'm getting somebody to take a picture of me on the podcast studio. There's a window there, it goes in the lobby. But I would have a timeline of where you're at and where you want to go and how you're going to get there. This is step 1. This is step 20. And here's the steps in between. And hey, by the way, if you're along for the journey, go to this page, Pockets of Love. And that's why I say landing pages versus websites. Is a lot of people give you a website with 40 places to click and people get lost. If I can go to ericspocketsoflove.com and I can see and I can have a form that says, I want to know more and be informed in the future, boom. And you could ask a question. By the way, what would be the best thing ever in your calzone? Name choices: bacon, pepperoni, banana peppers. Let them choose their calzone. Build your dream calzone. And so that way you start to build an audience. And every time you talk with these little segments, 2, 3, 4 minutes, don't go crazy with them. People like consuming content in 2 to 5 minutes, especially once they trust you. Go live every day and talk about, like, there's a guy, Jensen Cummings, who started going live every day back in during the pandemic about restaurants and consulting. And that's a task, but he did like an interview every day and a little longer, but go live every day, 2, 3, 4 minutes, talk about the vision, remind them of the vision, remind them of the website. By the way, go there, sign up for updates, sign up when we're doing this. And when you sign up, the concept you'll see below of what we're going to have, we're going to have these 5 phases: ideas, testing, offsite, pop-ups, ghost, and then just let them walk the journey. Then you start building that. Then you get that email list. You get 2 months in. hey, looking for a place to host my first pop-up calzone making contest. Whose house wants to host me and 10 of your friends? Send it out. People apply back. Boom. Next thing you know, you've got people that apply back. You pick one winner. Guess what? Drew and I have a hat on a live. Mike Smith, you won. Mike, we had a great time in high school. You killed me in football. I can't wait to pay you back. No, I'm just kidding. I'll be there. Boom. And then you've got people that applied that didn't get. Now you've got your next people. And so I think from that standpoint, you start doing it. When people see your vision and your passion, that's why I like video so much. You can tell so much through video. You can tell people's passion, love, enjoyment, and joy. I get people that tell me all the time when they hear me talk about marketing and podcasts, they're like in restaurants, like, man, you're into it. And it's visibly obvious. I'm not yawning and leaning back. Same thing with you. And so if you do this in 12 months, the people who need to know about calzones from Eric, the pockets of love, will know. You'll have built up awareness. You'll have built up a database. And hopefully at that point, you can take it and do it. And by the way, I know a guy in California who did something kind of similar with burgers, to where he got to a point where he had his idea and he went to a restaurant that was closed 2 nights a week, like Sunday and Monday. And he said, hey, can I come make my burgers at your restaurant? I'll pay your rent. I'll pay you a percentage of the sales. We'll have a sign that goes up. And he was a pop-up burger place. And a year later, he had 2 locations.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. People think that you start promoting once you're open, but if you start promoting years before you open and you develop, you show your work, you bring people along this journey, the day you open, you're going to be selling out every day, because you're going to build a backlog, a catalog of all the people that help you get there, who are a part of the journey, who know, like, and trust you and want to see you become successful because you develop rapport with them. You can build a list of 10,000 people. You can't make 10,000 calzones in an evening. You can't do it. So you're going to be, what's up?
You've created accountability partners, because now you've been telling the world for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks, 20 weeks, that you're starting Pocket of Love. And that's like I said, I started this podcast off with, the hardest part of writing your own story is knowing that you're worth the ink. And a lot of times to put something out there is the most important part. Like I keep telling everybody, we're going to have 50 vans on the road for America's Best Restaurants. We have 1 live now, 1 coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to have 50 in 5 years. I keep saying it so that people hold me accountable. And so that I'm like, I can't let these people down. I can't prove them right, my doubters. I can't do it. Like you with the Pockets of Love, you get out there and tell this. The more you tell yourself something, the more you convince yourself of it. And it's amazing. Like I listen to songs all the time that have a very deep meaning. There's words, like there's some songs that like I would never listen to outside of the 5 or 6 words in the middle that tell me something that, yes, I will do that. And so if you do that, now you create accountability partners, because now all of a sudden there's 1,000 people on that list waiting for Pockets of Love to open up. And there's no way you're not going to do it.
Yeah, I love it. This has been a lot of fun, Matt. Thank you so much for letting me dive deeper, pull back layers, and just extract these knowledge bombs you're dropping on us. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just believe in yourself. One thing I always tell people, make business decisions, not for money. A lot of times I think we get stuck. I've done it in the past. I've had businesses in the past where I was making money decisions based on cash flow and money. Make a business decision because it's the right decision, not because of money.
Yep.
Like I started the whole thing off, the hardest part about writing your story is knowing you're worth the ink. Believe in you. If you don't believe in you, nobody else will.
You remind me of a line, a recent opening quote from one of my guests. I don't know if it was the opening quote, but if it's not a fuck yeah, it's a no. Yep.
Oh yeah. I had an idea yesterday because we've got the vans out there, and I don't know if you've seen, but I don't publicly talk about it, but I have an orange Lamborghini that matches the van. I've never posted about it until we started doing this road trip locally. I had a friend of mine like, how do I not know you had this? I'm like, because that's just not, I'm not on Facebook posting what I own.
Yeah.
Because it's just not who I am. But we've got the orange Lamborghini right now this week going around with the visits. It's the first time ever. So when we show up to restaurants to shoot our show, there's the Mercedes wrap Sprinter van, the orange Lambo, and customers love it. It's really cool. It's making a big splash. I told one of my employees yesterday, I said, dude, what if every time we bought a new van, because we're getting 50 in the next 5 years, what if every time we bought a van, we bought an orange sports car to go with it? And that was the cavalcade. That every time we shot episodes, and because our vision is an America's Best Restaurants van in all 50 states, What if it had its own orange car? I said, obviously we couldn't get 50 Lambos because like my color, there's like 40 made, and that might get pretty expensive. But we can get Mustangs, Camaros. And so, it's like you said, if it's not a fuck yeah, it's not worth it. And like, to me, I'm like, you know what? Let's be loud. Let's do something nobody else is doing. Let's have fun with it.
I love it. This has been a lot of fun, Matt. Thank you so much. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we chat.
No, sir, it won't. I appreciate the time.
There is no questioning. I should say this. You are unstoppable.